Hey, good morning, everybody. Dave Schmittou here with an amazing special guest. I don't know which way to point when I do these things. An amazing special guest here, Michael Jennings, joining us for the daily drop-in. So go get your coffee, get yourself a bagel, get another refill of whatever it is that you're sampling right now, and let's do this. And we're back. I love having that little intro. Gives us a little bit of time too to get that last little sip of coffee or whatever it is we got to do before we get going. So
right. Just
Michael,
get your vocal cords ready to go.
That's it, man. Mike, thanks so much for being here today. I appreciate this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. These are a great thing for educators, and I'm thrilled to be a part and start my day off on the right foot.
True story. This is why I love Teach Better Team, because they do anything, even if it's uncomfortable for us to get up early and do this, but it's all about the educators out there to try to get their day started. So where are you at for the people that don't know who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. I am actually right now in downtown lovely Boise, Idaho. So out in the mountain time zone. So it is a little bit early here for me. I know it's like all the flyers say 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central. It's 6:30, bright and early here.
Whoo, Lord have mercy. And you got up just for this, right?
Just for this. I had nothing else to do today. So I figured, well, I'm just going to get up and have this and knock it out of the park.
Well, truth be told, I'm sure when you got the invite, it came from Rae, and you're like, yeah, I'll do anything for Rae. And then she put the back door. Actually, you're going to be hanging out with Dave Schmittou. And you're like, oh, am I already committed? But I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the fact that you did make the time for this, and that you're going to hang out with me. And for those people that are looking for Rae, because she is really the face of the daily drop-ins, don't worry. She'll be joining us in about 30 minutes or so for the second half of the drop-in today. So sit back, enjoy. You get to hang out with the amazing Michael Jennings for the next 20, 25 minutes or so. Then Ray's going to come in and wrap everything up. So Michael, other than being a guy hanging out in beautiful downtown Boise, I mean, who are you? I've seen you quite a bit on the drop-ins throughout the last several months and hang out with Rae. So I kind of cyber stalked you a little bit. I know who you are, but in case there's any new people to our audience that don't know who you are, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Michael Jennings. I am formerly a physical education teacher. I spent the better part of a decade teaching PE in the public school, the traditional public school setting. Most of my time spent in a middle school, actually with Rae at Evans Junior High School. And so that's how kind of we are connected. Currently, for the past about 1.5 or 2 years, I've been serving as the Director of Physical Education and Character Development at an educational service provider called Athlos. And so what we do is we provide services that really round out the educational experience of a young person. And so we have some special education services as well as some micro-credential professional development around special education. And then where I come in is we have what we call the Athlos Movement and Character Program, which is a combination of an SEL program baked in with continuous, regular, intentional, and meaningful movement throughout the day. So it really, like I said, kind of rounds out this educational experience by hitting on things that oftentimes we know are really important, but we don't necessarily know how to implement or how to integrate effectively in a traditional school setting. And so we support schools from New Orleans all the way up here to Boise and everywhere in between. And so we do everything we can to help teachers provide opportunities for students to be successful. And so that's my role currently. And so far I love it. Be able to help teachers and be able to have time to do these types of things with your guys' team is fantastic. So.
Well, I love it. And I feel like I'm just going to geek out on this today. So I'm going to try my best to respect the people in the comments and respect the people that are watching. We've got Nikki joining us. We've got Patty, who is excited because Wednesdays are their planning days in their district, so they get to check this out. And I love that people use this daily drop-in time as a part of their natural routine to plan and get ideas and get inspired. So that's exciting. We got Danielle joining us she's farther west than you, hanging out in California at 5:30 a.m. and said it's so worth the lack of sleep to hang out with somebody like you, Michael. So I appreciate this. So let me geek out a little bit. When you're in this fitness space, basically you're out there advocating for fitness and advocating for kids to get healthy and for schools to focus on, I think your words were, focus on the priorities that tend to get left out of schools. Where did that start for you? Did you automatically know that this was something you want to do? This was going to be your passion?
To be honest, not really. I'm a non-traditional educator. I went to school and I was very fortunate. I played college football at a very small school in central Illinois. And I was a pretty stereotypical football player. I went to school to play football and I didn't really know what I was going to do outside of college. I graduated with a biology degree with an emphasis in exercise science. So I knew I liked, and obviously through football and training, I knew I liked the training aspect. I loved sports. I've been a lifelong multi-sport athlete. Doing everything I can to stay active was just a part of my life. But I didn't know that I wanted to kind of instill that or impart that on other people. It wasn't until a little bit later on, a couple, moving around here and there, a couple different jobs, this, that, and the other thing, and a long story that we don't need to necessarily bore you with. We can go into it if you want to, but it's just a matter of one thing led to another. Both my parents were teachers, and I thought, you know what, maybe I could do this, try this teaching thing out. Ended up going back to school to get my teaching degree. Didn't really still even know what I was going to teach, but I knew I had all these kind of exercise science and PE type courses. I was like, hey, let's just try this out and see what we think. And my kind of first week of student teaching, I was like, yes, this is what I could do. And it was great. But even then, I wasn't necessarily sold on what the real purpose was, because you had mentioned fitness, which is, physical fitness, which is an extremely important aspect of an individual's life. But there are times where, let's take younger elementary kids, for example. They're young. They're not developed. They don't really have a clue what fitness is. We can't really change much because of their developmental stage and age that they're at. So it might be one of these things where maybe it's not fitness all the time, but it's meaningful movement, right? Getting people to understand and buy into this idea that movement is important. And what we get from movement, the doors that movement and meaningful movement and character development open for us, won't ever be opened if we don't do it at an early stage. And that's why it's so important that we have programs like the Athlos Movement and Character Program and quality physical education and quality character development throughout the lifespan of an education, if that makes sense. And so that's really where I've kind of fallen into and loved it. And for lack of a better phrase, dove head first right into it and have been swimming as hard as I could ever since. So.
Oh, that's awesome. And just so you know the reach of your words and your power, take a look at the comment that's on the screen right now. We've got somebody joining us from Nepal, where it's 7:21 in the evening. All right. They've already gone through the day. You are reaching people in Nepal. You're reaching people in California, New York, here in Michigan, from downtown Boise, Idaho, advocating for wellness and fitness. And, we're in this time right now in schools, in society, where it feels like everybody's trying to double down on their priorities. They're leaning in to their base. I'm curious for you, how has life shifted for you over the last 8-9 months? Not even just professionally, just personally, with stay-at-home orders and COVID and a guy that's active. How are you keeping sane and fit?
Well, fortunately for me personally, we have a wonderful space here. Our office, as you can see behind me, is basically a playground for adults. And right over in that corner over there, we have a solid weight room that's in our office. We have a gym right in front of me over here. So I've got ways to stay active. Plus, I spend a lot of time outdoors. Boise and Idaho in general is just kind of like a giant park. So everybody likes to stay outside. And so that's kind of safe. But as far as like everybody remembers that initial push and that initial lockdown, that was challenging. That was challenging for a lot of reasons. Like I said, for me personally, being active, it was just a matter of, okay, what can I do outside? From a professional standpoint, I kind of joke with some of my former teachers. It's like, hey, maybe I got out of teaching at the right time, because those poor people, you teachers that are in the mud right now and have been in the mud for the past 8 or 9 months, you deserve medals, you deserve trophies, you deserve awards, certificates, a raise, what anything and everything, because what we have known has been turned upside down. And what I've kind of the shift that I've made is just to do everything I can to learn and support as many people as I can to help everybody get through this as best and most successfully as possible. I talk often that I firmly believe, especially because obviously I spend a lot of time in the physical education space, I firmly believe that the silver lining behind all of this is that we have an unbelievable opportunity in front of us. And we've been living that opportunity to really showcase what education can be and what we can do for young people. And unfortunately, with that massive opportunity comes a little bit of risk, right? And because if we drop the ball, again, speaking education, if we drop physical education, if we drop the ball, then everybody's going to see us now drop the ball. And so even though it's tough and it's been taxing and it's different and difficult, now above any other time, maybe it might be more time to put the pedal to the metal and kind of plow through this.
Yeah, let's talk about that. And Rae in the comments here has a question I'm going to throw out there, and I'm hoping that if other people that are watching have questions for you, they can take advantage of this. Throw them in the comments. Don't make this Dave Schmittou just asking questions, because I now have Michael's contact information. I can talk to him anytime I want to. This is your opportunity, though. If you've got questions for Michael, throw them in the comments, and we'll send them his way. But Rae asks a question I think you were starting to allude to there. She asks, do you have movement tips for remote learning? Right now, teachers are trying all they can to get kids active and engaged. But speaking just from experience, I'm a father of 4 kids. My kids right now, all 4 of them are fully remote. They've been fully remote basically all year long, which means from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. every day, they're locked into a Chromebook. And at the end of that time, I'm just telling them screens down, no TV, no tablets. But now it's also, I'm in Michigan, it's turning cold. So trying to get them to go outside and jump on the trampoline or even go for a walk or a bike ride is a struggle. What advice do you have for both parents or educators right now to try to get their kids out there doing the things that are important?
Absolutely. Well, the first thing that I would tell any educator is, any classroom teacher, any administrator, is to reach out to your physical education staff and express your desire and your need to get these kids moving and collaborate. Because what I've been telling families, what I've been telling parents and teachers alike is, right now, physical education does not need to be one class. It shouldn't be one class period of the day. We have the ability to essentially make PE a full day activity where there's movement bouts, just like, it sounds silly, but it's similar to recess, right? Where we have a 15-minute bout of movement. Here we have a 15-minute bout of movement there. We have a 45-minute bout of movement there. And it doesn't have to be necessarily anything crazy. As a teacher, we can encourage our students to stand up while they're working on their computer. We can encourage our students to, if they're doing a reading, get their phone out and walk around the house and do their reading on their phone. Just those small amounts of movement will have big dividends towards the end of the process. We can do all sorts of things. We have, everybody, regardless of who you are, has some type of PE equipment in their house. Now, it's not going to look like traditional PE equipment, but if we want a balance beam, you can roll up a towel on the ground, and that's a balance beam. And then what we can do is just try to stand while I'm right here, working on my Chromebook, working on my education. I can try to stand and balance on my at-home balance beam while I'm working. And that's great movement. That's coordination, it's balance, it's two aspects of skill-related fitness. It's getting the neurons in the brain to fire and everything in the right direction. So we can use, socks, ball them up, and now you have a little miniature tennis ball that you can play catch with mom or dad or brother or sister or grandma or grandpa, or you can bounce it off of the wall. There's all sorts of activities out there, and 9 times out of 10, your PE teacher will be able to help you with those and try to develop this kind of schedule, if you will, for at-home learning.
I love so much about that. Keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. I was just going to say,
excited.
Yeah, I was just going to say a shameless little plug. We have a blog that I write a bunch of stuff for on our website that has a lot of these same exact tips that you can read. There's some take-home material you can share with families, you can share with PE teachers, you can share with students, some printouts and anything and everything, and that's just at athlos.org. So you can check that out. And please, as I know there's a lot of questions coming in, please feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm sure we'll talk about that later on, Dave, but reach out to me directly and we can get that, and I can help you out any way I can.
Well, let's put that out there right now for those people that are maybe just watching the first 15 minutes. How do people contact you? We'll throw it again at the end, and then I'll go into some of these questions. But how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, well, I'm on social media. I'm on Twitter, and I guess I don't know if I can put it into the chat or not, but we can send that around.
I'll throw it out.
Yep. I'm on Twitter at the Schmike. That is TheSchmike. That is probably an unfortunate nickname that my nephew gave me a long time ago that has stuck probably longer than it needs to. And then I'm also probably the best way to actually contact me is email. I'm really pretty quick with responding to emails. And that is mjennings@athlos.org.
And there we go. Rae coming in clutch for us again. Even though she's not live, she's
always
like,
on top of it. Yeah.
Boom. Thank you, Rae. Because I think she saw me reaching over trying to type and then whatever. Thank you. I got that. So yeah, reach out to him. So let me follow up with a couple things. I'm thinking about this first through the adult lens. And prior to COVID and airports being shut down and all that, I would travel quite a bit and spend a lot of time in hotels. And what you just said resonated with me. Sometimes there wouldn't be fitness centers at the hotel, or so I would have to improvise and figure out my own way to stay active. And that's kind of what you're advocating right now for kids as well. You don't have to have access to the gym or fitness center or even a balance beam or balls. And this reminded me, my kindergarten son yesterday in PE class was learning soccer, and the PE teacher kept saying, just get some socks, ball them up, and practice with that. You don't need to go buy the equipment to stay active, which I think is so smart and so spot on. But I want to take it to another level where you mentioned the idea of integrating it throughout the day. I think this is amazing advice for all subject areas. If we can get ourselves to the place where we're not just teaching things in silos in all disciplines, I would be a very happy camper. But specifically through the lens of PE. And you mentioned reaching out to your PE teachers, and they can help teachers integrate things throughout the day. Can you just build on that a little bit, maybe even through the adult lens, the adult self-care lens? Because not only are kids spending all their time behind Chromebooks and devices all day, we as the adults are as well. What can we do to stay healthy and fit while we're looking at a computer screen all day long?
Well, the first thing that jumps out at me right as you say that is somebody shared with me a picture because they thought I'd get a kick out of it. They had a treadmill in their house, and they were a teacher, and they stacked up on either side of the treadmill a chair on either side and stacked up a bunch of books and then put a couple of 2x4s across the books over the top of the treadmill. And they had their computer that they teach their class on the treadmill. So they were actually walking on their treadmill while doing their class. And I don't know if that's safe. I'm not going to necessarily go and say, hey, make this makeshift desk over top of your treadmill. I definitely wouldn't recommend, unless you're, I don't know, maybe you're crazy enough to do it. Definitely wouldn't recommend jogging while teaching. I don't necessarily know if that's a great idea. But it's the same thing. Stand, sit, get up, get down, move over, get onto your knees. I'm a constant fidgeter and fiddler. I have always something to be messing with in my pocket. Oftentimes when I'm presenting or if I'm talking in front of people, I actually have like a racquetball that I can squeeze, that I can throw against the wall, that I can bounce, just to keep myself finding ways to move. And it's just always a reminder that, oh, what is this in my pocket? Oh, it's my ball. Okay, I'm going to go toss it around a little bit while I think or while I do this thing. Just finding something that kind of spurs or sparks that, hey, let's get moving type idea is really important. And then lastly, and I know it's cold up in Michigan right now. It's getting cold here in Boise too. But hey, everybody, whether it's cold or whether it's hot, the fresh air does everybody good. Just get outside, even if it's just for 5 minutes, literally just walk around your house, take a couple deep breaths, and that will make a world of difference for your mood, for your alertness, for your preparation. And that's what we tell people all the time about our students, right? Is all it takes is 5 minutes to refocus, or all it takes is 5 minutes to prime the brain for that lesson. And it's no different for us adults. It just takes a few minutes of intentional effort. It doesn't have to be like Die Hard. I'm not telling you to go out and do 100 push-ups. Now, if you want to, that's great. But at the same time, it's just that little bit sparks a big difference.
I love that. And for those people that know me, you threw a challenge out there, basically being on a computer on a treadmill. So be ready, people. It's coming. It might even be tonight. Maybe I'll be hanging out with Jeff Gargas during the brain break, and you'll just see me bouncing up and down on the treadmill, cocktail in hand, trying to do all the things. Or I actually get to do the drop-in on Friday as well. Maybe I'll see what I can do there, and I'll be the guinea pig for everybody.
There we go. Yeah, you can test out the best device and apparatus for the treadmill desk.
That's it. I love it. I might even just be MacBook in hand, trying to see what I can do. We'll see. I'll figure something out. But you mentioned going outside. So if it's okay, I want to talk through that piece a little bit, because I'm looking at the comments again. And we have people here from with neighbors that are in New York City saying they barely get an opportunity to leave their apartment. We have one of our viewers in Nepal, where I can only imagine how cold it is in Nepal right now, with all the mountains and elevation. Here in Michigan, where it is super duper cold. What kinds of things could I be doing? I don't like the sled. I don't like cold. I'm a beach boy. I would much rather prefer the sunshine and a little drink with an umbrella in it. But I also know that being active and healthy, it's not only good for me physically, but it is mentally and emotionally as well. So can you give me just some guidance on what I can be doing and how I can inspire and force my kids outside a little bit?
Well, yeah, I think, snow makes everything a little bit more bearable, in my opinion. And that's
sorry, yeah.
If it's cold and like rainy, yeah, that's just a miserable day. We got to figure something out. Something needs to change. But if there's snow on the ground, I mean, then the possibilities are really endless. I'm a big proponent of just getting out, whether it's shoveling snow, whether it's, you said you were not a big. Hold on a second.
Did you just say that you are a big fan of shoveling snow?
Anything and everything. We used to have teams that I work with do community service projects to get outside and shovel snow. Just because it's a way, your heart rate's going to get up, your blood's going to get pumping, you're going to feel good. It's one of those things that, it's never great getting started, but when you're done, you're so thankful that it's done, that I have actually done it, right? Like, okay, this is fantastic. And then the next thing is, if there's snow on the ground, hey, I'm not necessarily advocating for snowball fights, even though I'm kind of advocating for snowball fights. But if you're not necessarily one for throwing snowballs at other people, that's target practice. Go find a tree and see how many people, make 3 snowballs.
Go ahead. Stick with the people. Don't talk about trees now. You said people twice. That's more than a Freudian slip. Go ahead.
Hey, snowball fights are fun. I can think of so many physical fitness traits that are being developed with a solid snowball fight. It's unbelievable. We've got cardiovascular endurance, we've got muscular strength, we've got speed, we've got reaction time, we've got coordination, agility, anything and everything that you can possibly want is being developed in a snowball fight. Plus, it's just a lot of fun, and it makes outside in the cold a little bit more bearable.
Yeah, you might have just inspired me to do something here tonight or this weekend even. My kids, I know, will lose their mind if I start throwing snowballs back in their direction, because I don't lose. And I will be gunning for the slowest and the weakest, so my little 5-year-old doesn't stand a chance. But if I can incorporate that into my own little fitness routine, and now I'm only the target and I'm out there dodging their snowballs, I can imagine them spending hours outside just trying to pelt dear old dad. That might be kind of fun. We'll see. Maybe we can even make some shields or some sort of protective equipment. That sounds like fun.
Absolutely. And you can make, with snow on the ground, you can make obstacle courses. You can build up little mounds and you have hurdles. You can, build up a big pile and have a little bit of a high jump type pit where you're trying to dive over, see who can dive over the highest, pile, so.
I love it. Oh, Rae said she's in, by the way. So,
hey,
guys,
I mean this with all due respect, Rae. I think you're in for a world of hurt if you start up a snowball fight with me. Just saying.
So on that note, I might just have to hold on a second, Rae. You're coming in now.
Yes.
I don't think he knew that you were there. Defend yourself, Rae.
Just say it.
Here's the thing, Jennings. I know that I am like more fit than you. I could take you, buddy. I'm in. I'm ready.
There are different levels. Here's what would happen with you, Rae. You would go into like yoga pose and you'd be holding this pose for like a half hour and he's just pelting you. You are super fit with like you're flexible and can do all the things.
I'm just saying.
Can you move quickly though? That's what you got to be able to do.
So I worked with Jennings for a number of years and I just want to brag. Like I was in the gym at least 4 times. At least, right, Jennings?
Over the course of 8 years. Yes, 4 times. And I actually heard something just recently, Rae, that you may or may not have been in the gym, but not participating in any of the activities. Is that true? Is that the real thing?
Oh, I'm sorry. It doesn't count if you just go into the gym. You have to actually do something when you're there. That's not what I heard. Are you sure? No.
Yeah. Yes.
So the gym that I go to, I pay $20 a month and I get free pizza, free bagels, a tanning bed, a water massage. I mean, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Come on.
Isn't that what the gym is?
Judgment.
That sounds like a cafe on the corner over here.
That's right. But at least I can say I'm going to the gym for a little bit and get some me time and eat some pizza, bagels, whatever. Nobody's the wiser.
Can I just say, Dave, I know that the comments are flowing in so stinking fast, but you have been sharing a number of different comments from people that Jennings and I used to work with that are absolutely supporting that I am a gym rat and Jennings is always on the couch eating potato chips. I just want the world to know.
So let's point out this one where I see liar in all caps. I'm not quite sure who that's referring to, though.
Not me.
That's the struggle.
Not me.
Whichever way Rae is, that's where I'm pointing to, wherever Rae is at.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Jennings, it's been so nice to be watching you this morning. I know I'm like crashing your time with Dave, but I love having you guys connect because you are both just so passionate about education. You're always very eager to find new ways to support students. And Dave, I knew you were going to connect well with Jennings because he just has a brain that runs a mile a minute. He's always sharing cool tips and tricks that you can literally take back and implement, whether it be with your students or with your own kids. So I've been loving this morning. I've just been watching on my phone.
I've loved this as well. I've got a new connection here. I've got all of his contact info. I'm going to throw it out here again for people. I'm stalking him. I'm following him on Twitter. I sent him an email already this morning. So be ready, Jennings. I am all over your routine here. So just be ready. I will be your new cyber stalker. Whoop, I've just put the liar thing on there again. Sorry about that. I'm just clicking away. I am going to be connected to you in a very real way. And I'm sure other people will as well. And my kids are going to thank you because I'm going to make them go outside and freeze today while they throw snowballs at me. But that's all right. They're going to be active. They're going to be well, and we're going to be making some memories. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. It's the meaningful movement, right? It's doing things with a purpose, for a purpose. It's no different than anything else in the classroom, right? We can't just go in and shoot from the hip all the time, or throw something at the wall and hope something sticks. We have to have a purpose behind it and understand what that purpose is and what we want to get out of it. And when we can do that efficiently, just good things are going to be coming. So.
Well, and I think that's what I've loved so much about all of your conversations, Jennings, that you've been able to share with our Teach Better family. And really the conversation, Dave, you guys have had today. It's not just about movement, but it's about that purposeful incorporation of this is not just a class that we, like give to students so that, math teachers get a break. Like PE, the idea of incorporating movement into students' daily life has to be an intentional process. And that's something I always appreciate about you, Jennings, is that you are sharing things that you can do around the house. We're not asking you to go buy a treadmill. We're not asking you to go do massive things unless you already have access to those resources. But there are ways to do this with all types of students and all types of situations. And now it's up to you to decide to incorporate it into your, daily lesson planning, which is so cool.
Absolutely. And like I said, I would be more than happy to answer any other questions. If anybody wants to reach out, if you have practical thoughts or practical questions, by all means, I can share resources and conversations and things that I've had and done, because it's that important. And it's not just that important for the kids. It's that important for us as the adults in the room and as the professionals. I can't say it enough. There's no convincing me otherwise.
So good. And I'm not a gym teacher, PE teacher, but I'm making so many connections regardless of the discipline to everything you said. I mean, Rae, as a math teacher, how would you feel if your language arts teacher said, go to math just so that I can get a break? Your class is not just a break from any other class. No. PE shouldn't be. And it's all about integrating it so that people can learn things throughout the life in their day. So PE is no different.
It's funny, Dave, there's like people in your life that you meet that you think of frequently, either because they're going to help you solve a problem and you really appreciate their insight, or because you're meeting someone who has a problem that if you connected them to this person, they would, have more success. And I cannot tell you, twice a week, if not more, I am talking to an educator somewhere around the world, and I'm like, you need to connect with Michael Jennings. Let me tell you about it. Even this week, I was on with Tyson on Monday for the Daily Open, and he was like, oh, I was a former PE teacher, and I love teaching health. And I'm like, ooh, do you know my friends, Dana Kirby and Michael Jennings? You should go talk to them. Like, it's ridiculous. You got to connect good people. So fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So again, people, connect with this man. Find him on all of the things. He shared his contact information. So connect with him. Michael, any final words before we transition and I play that funky beat again and the cool music, and then Rae and I start talking Administrator Mastermind Rewind stuff? Anything else that you want to share?
Just keep moving. Keep doing everything that you can for the betterment of the kids. I know that that's not a concern for the people that are chiming in and listening to this. I know that that is an everyday thing for you. But don't forget, and we've heard this a lot lately, don't forget that some of this movement should be for you too. We've got to make sure that we're taking care of ourselves. I'm a big proponent of the phrase, you can't give your best if you're not at your best, and you can't be at your best if you're not taking time for yourself. And I know that probably sounds like a broken record, but it's a broken record that needs to stay broken, because we all need to hear it sometimes. We all need to be reminded to find that time outside, to find that cup of coffee, to find that walk with a friend or a dog or a cat, if you're one of those people, whatever the case may be.
So good. I appreciate it. Keep preaching it until we start doing it. So, Michael, I appreciate you waking up early, sharing your day with us, starting your day with us, and inspiring us. Again, Daily Drop-In has become a regular part of my routine, something I'm hoping we can convince Rae and Jeff and Chad to keep going forever. So we'll see what we can do. But I appreciate you today, inspiring me and giving me some fuel to go for the rest of the day. So thank you.
Absolutely.
For the rest of you, don't go anywhere. We're going to do the transition music, and then Rae and I are going to start talking Admin Mastermind Rewind. Thanks, Mike. Rae Hughart, how awesome was that?
Oh my gosh. Anytime I can get any sort of dose of Michael Jennings in my life is a good thing. Like, he is somebody that I am constantly trying to continue to like soak up his insight. He is always sharing ideas, right?
Oh, so good. So good. So when you reached out to me and said, do you mind doing this? And I'm going to have Michael Jennings on. Honestly, I was a little nervous. I was like, Rae, are you sure? Are you sure you don't want to do this one? This is the Michael Jennings. You want me to talk to him? Thank you. That was amazing. I appreciate it.
I do like, for our listeners who always join us, especially for the daily drop-in, you obviously get to know like us as people, as well as hopefully, gain some value for the daily drop-in. And Dave and I were messaging like behind the scenes a few days ago being like, all right, Jennings is coming live. What's the game plan? And I was like, Dave, I think that you guys are going to jive. I can't wait for you to meet him. And he was like, I don't know. I mean, there's a really high bar already set. And I'm like, I know, but I'm not going to be able to do it. So Dave, you're in. I get too nervous hanging out with Jennings. I always like to talk shop with him, but you guys had a great conversation. Great.
Well, it was well played in doing this rewind for the second half, because I would have geeked out just talking to literally we would be talking all day long. He brought out treadmills and running and fitness and outside, and yet I still knew I had to cut it short so I could talk to you. No offense, but that was fun. So
I knew that I was going to be the second choice this morning, and I was okay with that spot. I don't even try and compete with trying to be number one against Jennings. It's not going to happen. I will take second place. And I'm excited to be live with you, Dave, because Wednesdays we get to do like a twofer. We get to have the daily drop, and then we get to continue, and it kind of like evolves into Mastermind Rewind, which I love.
Boom. Yes. Well, let me just set the record straight, Rae. I do not have a hashtag Team Jennings shirt. I don't have that yet. So just putting that out there for the record, I do have a Team Rae shirt. So just let's set the record straight. But yeah, Mastermind Rewind, Admin Mastermind. Holy cow, was yesterday amazing.
Yeah, tell
Absolutely
me
incredible.
yesterday.
Okay, so young Rae, just sit back and listen to the story that I unfold for you. So as you know, we get together twice on Tuesdays and literally all day, every day via Voxer and Twitter. I mean, this group is just amazing. These people inspire me, and they are nonstop. Yesterday, we got together twice, both at 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. and had huge crowds. We had, I think it was 27 administrators representing 22 states yesterday morning. How cool is that? Number one.
Gosh.
Like, it is, the entire country comes together for this thing. And then last night we had 9 or 10 other administrators coming in representing multiple countries last night. So we have this national audience in the morning and international in the evening. It's just so cool. And go ahead.
Can I just say the time zone that's so cool that time zones work that way, that you can happen in the morning and get a lot of people from across the US, and then pop it in the afternoon and still get a number of different states, but then also get different countries, like just strictly because of how the time zones work. I think that's so cool.
Oh, and the people that come in. So if I weren't part of the Teach Better family and I just saw like the pictures to see the people that are there, I mean, these are people that I look up to and I admire, and dare I say, kind of worship a little bit. There are some of the most impressive educational leaders that come into this, not just to preach their message, but to sit in and learn with each other. And it is so stinking amazing and humbling to be able to sit in the presence of these educational rock stars, really, who are just learning and growing and forming their own family. And every single week we have new people join us. We had new people in the morning, new people in the evening that continue to grow and join the family. And they are instant contributors, which is so cool.
So cool. So cool. So yesterday was Tuesday, which means it was the day where all these administrators were able to get together, both in the morning and or in the evening. And did you guys have any fun conversation, or did everybody just sit silent on that Zoom call and like twiddle their thumbs? Like, okay, we're just an hour, right? It's like a staff meeting you don't want to be in. Is that what it was like?
Not at all. Yesterday was one of those where we had to just, okay, it's been an hour. Let's shut this down because we're going to keep going. And then the conversation really did continue through Voxer, and it's still going right now. But I'll be honest, I was kind of selfish yesterday. In both meetings, I presented this question to people. It's something that I was wrestling with, and said, you can go with this when you go into your breakout rooms and continue this conversation if you want. But I am selfishly going to ask for your help and support this. So feel free. In every single room, every single meeting, they took it and they ran with it, and that became the conversation. So let me share it with you. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Okay. So people know that I teach at the college level. I teach educational leadership. So I teach future principals and superintendents, educational leadership. And on Monday night, I had one of our mastermind contributors come and be a guest speaker in my class. And it was Sari from New York, and she is absolutely incredible. I think you know her. You're the one that actually sent her to Mastermind originally.
I did. I love her. She did a book study with Teachers Deserve It, which is how I connected with her.
Yeah.
She's so outstanding. I'm so glad she's been so immersed in the Teach Better family, because now she pops up everywhere. Guest blogger, mastermind, everywhere in between.
She's incredible. Yeah. So she presented to my class on Monday and did this amazing job where she started off by telling us all about her family dynamic and the ups and downs of her family and the blending of her families. And then she went on and talked about her professional journey, all in the name of trying to explain the power of relationships and transparency and vulnerability. But then it led to this conversation about empathy and how it's important to have empathy in schools and as leaders. But then that transcended into this huge conversation in my class that I then dropped for our mastermind yesterday, because it got me thinking. Her presentation got me thinking. And so let me set the stage, and I want to hear your thoughts, Rae. Okay. Right now, there's a word going around in education quite a bit. We talk about grace and how teachers and educators everywhere need grace. Okay. But here's my thinking. In my world, I'm thinking we've got this long spectrum. On one end, we have grace. On the other end, we have judgment. I feel like at times, grace and judgment are opposites, but part of the same conversation. Both come without having the full story, without having the full truth. You walk into a teacher's classroom, you see them doing something, and you can immediately have a judgment unless you have the full story. Grace comes just free and clear. You don't have to have the story. You don't have to know the background. You just pass it out to people.
Yeah.
But my question is, does grace inhibit us from growth? My belief is that in the middle of judgment and grace is empathy. And empathy comes from actually knowing people, hence the need for relationships. You can only have empathy if you put yourself in somebody's shoes. In a prime example, as a teacher, let's say you have an assignment that is due this morning, Wednesday morning, and tonight, two students hadn't turned it in yet. Mm-hmm. One student just sends you an email and says, here's my late work. Mm-hmm. Another student sends you a message and says, Miss Hughart, I'm so sorry I didn't turn this in. Last night, my dog died. I was up all morning crying about it. I didn't get it turned in. Knowing that story caused you to have a little bit more empathy. Well, you could provide grace to both students and just say, not a big deal. But if you know the stories, you're more inclined to reach out and help people. So your thoughts on all this, Rae?
My thoughts on all this is that you're a genius, and I hate being live with you because all I do is and
let's just stay in that moment for a minute, Rae. Let's just talk about that then.
No, Dave, I've never, ever thought about this. And now that you have broken this down, I feel like I need a flow chart, a blog, and like everything in between to really look at this, because in my mind, you laid this out so beautifully. I'm a visual learner, especially with audio, but like, if you're really looking at a spectrum where you have grace on one end and judgment on the other, I think your evaluation of the two, not needing to include the story behind why that's being provided, is incredibly spot on. I've never thought about that. And then I think when you get to the middle point, you start talking about empathy, that's where you have all the facts, and yet you're able to put yourself in their shoes, like with what you said, is extremely spot on. I would argue that with that being said, I think the difference, and I don't mean to take this in a different direction, so, wave me off here, but I think some of the idea of grace, especially early on with COVID, was that, how do I phrase this? Like, people didn't always have the capacity to understand the full story of others because they were struggling so much dealing with their own stuff.
Sure.
Does that any way make sense?
No, absolutely. First of all, before we go there, I think Alex is going back to last week. He's giving you a 10 out of 10 on your clothing choice today. I'm only an 8 out of 10, so well done.
Alex, this is an olive suede. It's so nice.
So there's our distraction for the moment.
Yes.
But I would also say that what you just said is spot on, because you know that story and you know it's based off of a capacity, not necessarily a choice. And I think right now there are some that are still quick to judge, thinking, oh, it's a lack of effort. That teacher just doesn't care. They're not trying. In the reality, if we go back to assuming the good and doubting the bad, if we assume everybody is truly trying their best, we need to figure out what the individual story is, whether it's in your classroom with the kid who might be keeping his monitor off and not tuning in all the time, or the teacher who's not showing up to staff meetings or struggling with technology. You got to learn their story so you can help them grow.
So I like this connection of growth, because I think that's the piece that we really need to hit on, is that you can provide people grace blindly. You can go through every single day. I could go through my entire teaching day today and give every student grace and then not give any follow-up as to why it's happening, how I can help, how I can support the student better. And I can end the day and like still pat myself on the back like I taught today. But the reality is that when you add in that avenue of being helpful, of growth, of development, then you really can't do that in a space of grace, because in grace, you're just kind of giving the head nod of, we're going to get through this. In empathy, you're saying that all that's true, but I'm going to ensure that happens by helping you and being like a partner in the solution. Absolutely. And I think that if you're having that solution-minded feel, you're right, it can't exist with grace.
And to take it a step further, I think sometimes with grace, it impacts us where we get this God complex. Well, I shall bestow upon you grace. I shall give you a free pass. Whereas empathy requires us to also examine our own story. Are we creating arbitrary hoops for people to jump through? Or do we need to reflect? Going back to that late assignment example, why did things have to get turned in last night or this morning? Is there any rationale to that? Can you take some ownership in that? Do you need to grow in this as well? It requires you to even put on a different pair of your own shoes to walk around in, to figure out what you need to be doing differently. And for administrators, it's the same thing. How often do you say, I communicated this to my teachers via an email, yet teachers are getting 1,000 emails a day, getting lost in it? Do you have different ways to communicate to your teachers, like you expect them to communicate with their students? I mean, it goes both ways.
So I guess, Dave, for me, a big part of this conversation is deciding who you want to be and what you have the capacity for. Because if you are still an educator operating where you're giving everyone grace, to me, that means, and I'm sorry for this analogy, I use it all the time, but I do know that it makes sense to everybody. Like, when your stress level is filled all the way up, I don't have any more capacity to like take on other people's stress, other people's, concerns. So when I'm at that high stress, I might just be giving people grace, not trying to understand why, but just trying to like tell them it's okay, but I can't be a solution finder with you. Whereas if you have the ability right now to find some balance in your life, where you can manage the stress in your life and support others, that's where you can choose to help with the empathy lens. So right. I think people deciding like, really, what space am I in physically and mentally to be able then to support others? And if your stress level's too high, you may not be able to be in that empathetic space at the moment, and maybe reevaluate in a day or a week or a month. But that, I feel like, is the first avenue of deciding the type of educator you can or want to be, is really better understanding your capacity before you can help others. It's kind of like that airplane, right? Like putting on the oxygen.
No, absolutely. And Danielle mentioned this as well in the comments here, that her best moments of empathy is when she shows her mistakes and her vulnerabilities. It's this whole idea of empathy comes from relationships and transparency. And as leaders, we're not going to walk around to the teachers or the staff that we serve and say, tell me your story, tell me your deepest, darkest secrets, while we continue to wear this facade and this mask, not being vulnerable and real as well. Because then again, that turns into manipulation. We want to know people's secrets so that we can get them to do things for us. That's not a relationship. So,
yeah, I see this modeled all the time. I love that you just brought that up. Even with our team, we've had numerous conversations around the fact that educators need to be real people when they connect with other educators, because that really forms a different bond than if, Dave, you and I were live every morning saying, let us help you, since everybody listening, we're the experts, let us tell you how this goes. There's a very different relationship that gets built with trust. If you show that authenticity, if you share with people that you're just human and you're trying to support others, there is a different vulnerability that you're able then to put into your long-term relationship.
Absolutely. I mean, the first step towards growth is admitting you have a problem, right? Yeah. And we say we're all lifelong learners. So if you're going to keep learning, you got to keep growing. Literally, the idea of learning something means you're changing your mind. Your mind is changing, which means you have to admit that the way you did things in the past or the way you're doing things now might not be the best. So you've got to be willing to change your mind and grow. And it starts with teachers and leaders and trickles downhill. What we do, they do. So practice what you preach, people.
So Dave, I have a question for you. And I don't know if this came up in the mastermind. But it's related to this.
I get nervous, Rae, when you preface your questions with the fact that you have a question instead of just asking it. It's like you're pausing for a second.
I have a question. Is there a time when you should be giving grace over empathy? Or should you always, if you have the capacity, should you always provide empathy?
So I think it's a twofold. And this is just Dave Schmittou speaking. This is not based off of best practice or research. So I'm prefacing it because I want people to not walk away and say, well, Dave said, which means you need to critique it. So I would argue that if you had to err on the side of grace or judgment, always err on the side of grace. Provide grace until you can figure out the story. So feel free to get like those two assignments, the two students that don't turn something in, feel free to give them both that free pass, but then it's on you to figure out the story, as opposed to providing judgment and then figuring out the story. It's a lot easier to get the story if you provide grace first. Does that make sense?
You twisted my question, Dave, and then
I know I did.
Awesome route.
Oh, I did.
I love it. So I was trying to compare grace and empathy and trying to figure out the situation. You're saying, let's compare grace and judgment. If you have a choice between grace and judgment, and I'm saying this to every educator because I sat in multiple meetings yesterday where this choice was on the table and people did not choose grace. But if you have the choice between grace and empathy, whether it has to do with a student, a colleague, a leader, a whatever, choose grace. I love that statement is the direction you took this. I think that is a choice that we have to take as human beings. But then you made this connection of you should be providing grace for as long as humanly possible until you get the story. And maybe that's just the choice. Is if you had to choose between grace and empathy, it really is just the choice to find out more detail. And in the meantime, grace will exist.
Yeah, exactly. The reason I took that detour is because I think grace is better than judgment. However, I think empathy really is our goal more so than grace. And I think if we simply say grace is the goal, then that becomes a stopping point for some people.
Yeah.
And we begin to just say free pass, free pass, free pass, as opposed to putting the ownership on us to find the story. And this, I know I give bad analogies all the time, but I'll go here. You and I, we talk about grading all the time, standards-based grading or whatever. And I think at times people hear solutions that they think is the end point. For example, get rid of zeros as though that's the answer. Well, no, that is a starting point to a much deeper conversation. If that's all you do, you really haven't done anything. There's so much more that you need to do. And just getting rid of zeros is a way to give grace to kids to help mathematically, but it doesn't actually change your practice. It's the same thing. So, yeah, good. It's lots of different ways we can go.
Yeah, I like that concept of a starting point rather than an end point. I think if we're always working to say it's relatively black and white, you should be doing this, then that actually inhibits our ability to grow as well, because then we're just making a black and white choice versus understanding why the choice was the correct one and then continuing it forward to make future choices. Important. What is this, Alex? What is Alex?
And Alex joins our mastermind. He was there yesterday, and in his breakout room, he writes, counterpoint from one of the breakouts yesterday: setting and holding others to expectations is a graceful action. Not holding not holding others accountable is unfair to everyone. We show grace when we judge with an empathetic lens. So, yeah, this And that's the beauty of this mastermind group. I know you and I just geeked out for 25 minutes here, but that's the beauty of the mastermind group. When you get 40 plus leaders coming together literally from around the world, discussing things like this through our own lens and talking about how it applies to our setting and our circumstances, how we can do better and be better for those that we serve. I mean, I just leave every single week and I am in awe, and I'm just completely blown away with the conversations, because I know the exponential impact that we'll have when you have a superintendent or a principal as part of these conversations that then walks away and says, "Oh, I'm going to implement that in my school today." And they take it and they make it actionable. Then every single teacher, every single student, and an entire community gets impacted by that. And it's just so powerful.
So I now have a homework assignment for you and a homework assignment to all of our listeners. Are we ready?
Okay.
All right. Homework assignment for Dave Schmittou. If anyone wants to follow up with Dave to make sure that this all happens, Dave, you need to write a blog on this. I'll create a graphic for you where we have our scale with grace and judgment, empathy in the middle. I don't want it to be a complex blog. I want it to be it's really important that we get this down in writing, because I think this is a beautiful concept to share with others. This is a perfect concept for a little bit of a staff notes end of, something tidbit to consider. This is a perfect thing to post on your social to challenge someone's thinking today or this week. So Dave, you have a little bit of a homework assignment. For everybody else,
did you say blog or vlog? I didn't hear you.
I'm fine with either, except
okay.
I'm good with either. I'm gonna make a graphic though so we can see the visual. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
The other thing, the homework assignment for everyone listening, is I want you to count. You have an entire day going on today. And if you have a weird day on Wednesdays, which I know remote learning sometimes does, then do it tomorrow. But I want you to count the number of times in your day today that you have the choice to give grace or give judgment, and which one you choose. Because I think that the more aware we can be on which one is our natural go-to, and maybe it might change if you're in a student situation versus a colleague or a leadership situation, but really think about, in this moment, I need to find out more. As I find out more, am I going to give grace or give judgment until I get to that safe space where I know things and I'm able to provide empathy? And I think us being aware of that will be a really interesting conversation to follow up on at some point very soon.
And yeah, exactly. Remember that accountability is not the same thing as judgment. So accountability can be part of that empathetic lens. And I would challenge people, don't just do it at work. Do it at home as well. Do it with your neighbors who have their Christmas lights flashing at 3 a.m. and you're like, turn them off. I need to sleep. Why are they doing that? It's not always about you. So figure out ways that you can figure out the full story.
Dave, I know we're ending here, but strictly because I want our listeners to be able to do their homework assignment, whether they're watching us live right now on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch, or they're listening to this after the fact as a bonus episode of Teach Better Talk podcast. Can you give us an example where you give judgment? Like, I'm not saying you're condoning that you should give judgment, but what is an example? Because you did bring up this idea of holding people accountable, and you're like, oh, that's different. And I think it's so important that we create a difference between judgment and holding people accountable. Do you have any sort of example that can model what a judgment would look like over grace or holding others accountable or anything else? Does that make sense?
Oh, I can just tell me when to stop. So again, not saying this is not a positive, but I could say people could be looking at this drop-in right now saying, Schmittou, you are an arrogant beep, beep, beep. You think you know it all, and providing judgment. They could. Yeah. I don't know if they are.
They would never.
That'd be ridiculous. That would be ridiculous, but you could. That would be a judgment. Going back to the example of the 2 kids, you could judge and say, well, the first student that just sent me his late work obviously doesn't respect me, doesn't respect my deadlines. He's just trying to get away with things. So that's a judgment when you don't know the story. You might have a kid in your class where you tell everybody, I need all cameras on real quick, that doesn't turn on his screen. And you might think that kid's just being disrespectful, doesn't like my rules. He's just being obstinate. That would be a judgment without knowing the full story. So, I could go on and on. Yeah. No,
those are really helpful. I just think getting in the lens of what does a judgment actually feel like versus grace or holding accountable. I really think that helped. Ooh. I like Nikki's. I thought of this too, judging people for the sports fans. When people say they're White Sox or Packers fans, instantaneously I'm like, ugh.
Right. Yeah. Or if they wear scarlet and gray or whatever, Buckeye, whatever, then I immediately write those people off. Absolutely. I get you, Nick.
You can't even
I get
help
you.
it.
Yeah.
It's a natural reaction.
No, it's true though. We judge people by the titles that they have. Are they Mr., Mrs., Miss, Doctor, whatever? We throw judgments around like crazy. So
Dave,
get rid of the judgment mindset and pour in some empathy.
Dave, literally on Saturday. This is like side note for all of our listeners that love to know about our lives. On Saturday, Dave and I had a meeting. And I was really excited to talk to Dave. And he pops into the Zoom call. And what's the first thing we talked about? Titles. Being a
Your
judge.
title. Yep.
We did.
Yep.
It was the first thing we talked about. And I was not happy with your answer, but I respectfully, we moved on. You were wrong, but whatever.
Well, we'll see what comes of that. Yes.
Yeah. You won that conversation. It is what it is. But it was just very funny that it's like, guys, this is not just things that we are like diving into because the mastermind. These are things that are happening in our real lives constantly. And I'm so thrilled that the mastermind exists as a space for people to collaborate and share ideas. And then Dave, I really appreciate that you do this rewind. Thank you for letting me crash, by the way, 2 weeks in a row. I'm kind of geeking out that I get to chat with you live on camera. But I really appreciate you doing this because not everybody can join the mastermind. Like everyone listening, I hope you do because you can actually get the link. It stays the same every time you just register at teachbetter.com/mastermind. But if you can't, if the timing doesn't work, or if you're, really busy or you've been meaning to make it, it's been on your calendar. And then every week it's like you feel guilt because you're like, oh, I didn't pop in. Erase that guilt. This rewind exists so that we can include you as a part of this conversation. And Dave, I'm so appreciative that you bring this to us every single week because I know Tuesdays are impactful for so many administrative leaders, but now it can be also impactful for so many more who weren't able to join. So thank you for that.
No, absolutely. I appreciate that I'm available to do it because it lifts me up and grows me. And just to take it to that whole nother level, if those times don't work for you, don't worry. You can still be part of the mastermind community. Yeah. We grow and we connect all week, all day. Just shoot me a message and we'll add you to the Voxer group or get you connected with people because our meetings are our common place where we can all come together and have the uniting conversations. But you can still form connections and grow with people all week. So just let me know and we'll get you in.
Dave, I know we're not going to touch on this because we are not allowed. We've been sworn to secrecy, but being able to brainstorm our goals for 2021 for this admin mastermind has been so inspiring. I'm so excited for all of you listening for us to eventually get you all the details because this mastermind is purely designed as a safe space for people, for leaders to come in and talk shop and feel that community. And it's going to be better than ever next year. And I'm so stoked. So get ready for that.
Can't wait.
Hey, Dave, before we leave, can we highlight, there's so much junk going on with the Teach Better team. Can we just throw a bunch of it at people before we end up?
Yeah. What do you want to talk about first? Do you want to talk about the gift of grid? Let's talk about that.
Okay, let's do Gift to Grid. So Gift to Grid is going on right now. We just kicked it off on Monday, December 7th. And Gift to Grid is all about being generous, which, the Teach Better family is the most generous network of educators on the planet. We are asking for you right now, or at some time this month, we want you to go make an account. It's a free account on educationblueprint.org. It's a beautiful nonprofit started by teachers, run by educators, and it is designed as a safe space for people to share resources. It takes 45 seconds for you to make an account, and we want you to upload one resource, one tool, one idea to share with educators. So it's about being generous with the beautiful work that you're already doing in classrooms and schools and sharing that to a wider audience. So Dave, this could be a massive unit you're sharing with all these tools and resources, or I'm going to share the mini lesson I did yesterday, teeny tiny little idea. It's going to take 5 seconds to upload. I'm not going to worry about the cover art. I'm not going to worry about any of that. I'm just going to get the idea out there because the hope is that it helps one person, one educator somewhere. And we really would love for each and every one of you to take on that challenge.
Love it. So good. So educationblueprint.org. What else we got going on?
The other thing we have going on is your course has been blowing up. I cannot tell you how many DMs I've been getting about
our course.
No, Dave, it was a Teach Better course, but you are the one that made it all good because it just came out at teachbetteracademy.com. Will you give us a little summary of that course? I'm asking for a summary knowing that I have like 50 people that have already told me that they've taken it, enjoyed it, and passed it on to their friends. So I'm confident people listening already know about it, but let's just pretend this is their first time meeting. They don't know anything about the course you just released. Go ahead.
So Leading by Empowering is the title of it. The basic premise is a lot of what we talked about today, how leaders can step up and empower those that they serve. Leadership isn't about being in power. It's about empowering those that are around you. So coming at things with a strengths-based approach, looking for the greatness in those that you serve, finding ways to amplify the voices of those around you. Buzzwords, taglines throughout the course are getting others to weigh in so you don't have to try to get buy-in. And there's some strategies in how you can do that as a leader in any capacity, in whether it's principal, superintendent, assistant principal, dean, teacher. If you want to try to get others to be amplified and feel strengthened and empowered, this is the course.
I love it. And then I do want to give a little shout out since you are listening to our daily drop-in. Our daily drop-ins are going to be live every single Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all the way through December 18th. So we are about a week and a half until they end for this stint. So make sure you are still catching all of those with the incredible guests that we have had and will continue to have on the daily drop-in. And then I think we have one more thing we can highlight, Dave, but we have to be very, very careful with our language. Are you ready to censor
I'm ready.
like never before?
Oh, Lord. Okay.
There is a thing that could be being announced soon that you and I are both involved in that might involve more live stream time.
More than daily drop-in hour-long stuff.
A little, just a smidgen, maybe 12 times longer than that.
Okay.
Happening over, I don't know, winter break-ish. That I think people should maybe try and listen to, kind of maybe. So we're not releasing the dates on that yet, or even what we're talking about. But if you listen to the Teach Better Talk podcast, we are spoiling the secret this week. So
hypothetically, just I need to ask some questions. Hypothetically, people could get 12 times the daily drop-ins on a day during winter break, hearing from more than just you and me.
Way more.
Hearing from lots and lots of people. Hypothetically, of course. This could be a thing that is shared this week.
And hypothetically, Dave, there hypothetically could be thousands of dollars of giveaways as well. But that would be hypothetical, of course, because hypothetically. Yeah.
And hypothetically, this might be something that Jeff has been begging for a long time. And we've hypothetically tried something like this before.
I think there was one time maybe that we maybe tried. Yeah. And when I say tried, I mean, we did it. My butt was super sore afterwards.
There's a comment on the screen. And those of you listening to the podcast, I guess you should have been here to see what the comment was. Just saying. Yeah.
Dave, it's been so fun being live with you. I always love talking shop. I loved listening to Michael Jennings and his incredible suggestions today. And thank you for letting us just spew all the things going on with the team, because I can't keep it straight between all the things going on and all the new launches we've had and previewing things that are coming. I can tell you, Dave, looking at our marketing calendar, there are 2 things that are coming this week that we didn't even touch on. So there's just a lot going on. Make sure you stay tuned with all the things going on with the team by subscribing and following and, being on our email list, because I feel like that's where the secrets are always shared.
Just do all the things. There you go. Thank you. And I hope to see some of you back here this evening. I get to hang out with Jeff Gargis. I mean, this is the perfect day for me. So I can't wait. So hopefully people will come back and enjoy that break for yourself tonight at 5:00. See you then. Thanks, Rae.
Thanks.